Hello, good day. We will discuss about if and nested if, the logical function in Excel. Okay, so now let's have the theory first. When you say logical function in worksheet or in Excel, it's a powerful worksheet functions that will enable you to add decision. Okay, so that will decide you what if it's yes, what if it's no, or true or false. Okay, so when you say if function class, it returns one value. If the condition is true, then you are going to execute the true statement. If it's not, you are going to execute false. But take note, false is just optional. Okay? Now, these are the argument. This is the logical test that you wanted to be tested. And then what will happen if it's true? And then what you are going to display if it's false. Now, what if you'll be given more options, class? Okay, now this time, the nested ifs will appear on the picture. Okay, so let's proceed on the demonstration. Let's take about age. Okay, now for example, age and then remarks. Okay, anyway, it's up to you with the situation. Okay, now for example, we are going to populate any age here that we wanted to check on. So say 50, 45, say 16, 15, 2, 18, and so forth. Now, our situation is if the age, say for example, if the age is greater than or equal to 18, then you will say, okay, it's legal. Okay, if it's not, then you will say, oh, you are still young. Okay, can we do that? Okay, let's say for example, okay, now let's have this as our formula. So is equal to if, take note on the argument, if the function is a function. Let's take for the cell reference A2. If A2 is greater than or equal to 18, alright, so if A2 is greater than or equal to 18, you will say, what if it's true? Then you will say, oh, legal, or you will say, you may say old enough. Okay, old enough. What if it's not? You will say too young. Okay, so we do that. If it's false, then we could have it too young. Okay, so take note on it, old enough. Alright, so when we autofill that, so what happens to these ones? Too young. What if this one, let's say 5? Alright, let's say 19. Okay, old enough. Alright, so that is an if statement. Okay, if statement will happen. Now, what if you'll be given more options? Okay, what if in that case, if it's not old enough, you'll say maybe, oh, for example, let's say, now how about for our demonstration, quick demonstration, let's have a nested if. Okay, now for example, let's say 50 to 59, for example, you will say 50s, right? And then let's say 40 to 49, we'll say 40s. And then 30 to 39, you will say 30s. Okay? And you will say 20 to 29, we will say 20s. Okay, for the purpose of demonstration, let's have this one as our age. Okay? So, what if it's less than 20? Okay, you will say, if less than 20, you will say too young. Okay? Okay, shall we do that? Now, let's proceed with our formula. Okay, so let's say, okay, let's make use of this one. Let's make use of this column. Now, how we do that? Okay, how will we do that? Now, let's just, for example, is equal to if. Okay, let's take a look with this one. If that cell reference, okay, if there's one, okay, if that cell reference, let's take a look of this table here, is greater than or equal to 50, what will happen if it's true? Okay, then you will say, okay, you will say 50s, right? Another is that, let's say if, what will happen to this one? If A2's same cell reference is greater than or equal to 40, alright, what will happen if that would be the case? You will say 40s, alright? And then, what if, next to the range, okay, if our A2 is greater than or equal to 30, you will say 30s. 30s, okay? And then next will be if another if, because that's why it's nested. If then if, okay? If this one A2 is greater than or equal to 20, what will happen if it's true? You will say 20s. 20s, okay? And then what if it's not? So let's have the if here. If A2 is less than 20, take note in our inequality sign. What will happen if it's not or if it's true? If less than 20, you will say too young based on our table, right? So supposing you're done, so we are going to enclose it with parentheses here until such it will give us the black color of parentheses, meaning to say the argument is done. Okay, so let's try to check if we are correct with our formula, if our logical functions really performed well based on our formulas that we have used here. Okay, so for example, too young, okay, let's say 45, let's change another values here, let's say 30, 25, let's say 35, let's say 29, 28. Okay, so I think it functions based on, remember when you say logical functions, it depends upon the situations that we have placed in with, right? So again, when you say if function, if the statement is true, then if the condition is tested to be true, then it will execute the true statement. If it's not, then the false one. The false one is just optional. What if you'll be given more options? Then nested if functions will come in. Okay, that will be all for our discussion for today. See you next time.